Team, how are we? Welcome back to another episode of the High Performance Coach Podcast. I hope that you are well today. I am joined by the Compassion King himself, leader by name, leader by nature, as Mr. Troy Nixon would say. Mr. Ben Leader, how are you, mate?
I'm absolutely that is an intro. No, I'm fantastic.
How does it feel to be sat on the orange sofa?
It's got the little sort of casting couch vibes, but I'm all right with it.
Good, and have you found the last 2 days in Dunoon? First time?
It is my first time. It's an absolutely fantastic place, to be fair, and this house is absolutely ridiculous. Peak setting for some incredible talking.
Yeah, without a doubt. Dude, we thought it'd be really powerful. We are literally half an hour away from checkout, so thought we would actually just jump in and just do a little short, sharp couch caffeine cast that could hopefully provide the guys with some value around the training you actually delivered to our guys a couple of weeks ago, which was absolutely mind-blowing. I think it's probably the longest training to date, which is saying something considering how good I am at talking and how long I like to talk and put slides together. So mate, you've obviously got the new record, but you're obviously talking all things like social media and the capacity for our coaches to now be able to put themselves out there with even more authenticity. So dude, let's start there. What was the key component obviously of that training, and what do you now believe are some of the biggest challenges that coaches face when actually putting themselves on the internet?
First point is obviously being able to connect yourself and being able to feel confident in the message that you're preaching and the message you're trying to deliver to the people that you ultimately want to help, because that's always point one. Like the gist of the training, it wasn't about content, but it was about you as a person, i.e. the coach, and your ability to have that confidence to ultimately take that mask off and share who you are, the things that are important to you, the things that allow you to be the person that you are and allow you to really demonstrate your journey and the place that you've been, like that you're working towards, but the places you've been to, because that's you creating runway for your clients to kind of travel down. So it's important that I want people to feel confident in themselves, to really put themselves out there and say, do you know what, this is why I'm doing this. This is a good thing, and you are sort of ultimately enough to help people, which is amazing.
And what do you believe are some of the barriers that stops people from being able to do that?
Judgment, fear, lack of confidence. And I say this because I was in this place, right? And that's why I feel so confident to talk about these things, because I was that guy who felt like I had to be someone else to get other people ultimately to like me, to buy into what I needed to do. But the moment that I allowed myself to be who I was, my people came towards me, which is the most refreshing thing. And again, at that point, yes, we're in this to help people. Yes, the point of the training was that we're serving our people to the best of our ability. But there's an element of this that it's about us giving ourselves permission to be who we are, really just like quantify our worth, I guess that's what I kind of to round that up, really.
Yeah, dude, incredible. And in terms of people being able to understand kind of who they are and then how they want to be able to communicate and obviously put themselves on the kind of like internet, are there do's and don'ts and a place that somebody would be able to kind of start?
Vulnerability is like your biggest superpower, your ability to be vulnerable. But vulnerability is obviously a very fine line. It's like a pendulum, and there's an element of almost trial and error with it. But the first thing to say is vulnerability doesn't have to come from a place of almost like sadness or extreme situations that we've been in, because the first thing that I would say is obviously the things that we're speaking about on the internet are obviously extremely personal to us, and obviously for you, your actual mental health and your kind of confidence, obviously if it's still something that makes you feel extremely uncomfortable, obviously please do not share that stuff. Please go and talk to someone sort of professionally about that kind of realm. But there's elements that we can share if it's coming from a place of strength, a place of courage, a place that, hang on a minute, I've actually overcome this, now I'm in a position to talk about this. Sometimes we are not, as the coach, in a position to actually guide someone through that, but we are able to show them, hang on, this was a place that I was been, look at where I have, like, look at where I am now, and look at the steps that I put in place to allow myself to kind of get that to that position. So that fine line between, hang on a minute, this is who I am, but ultimately, is this actually relevant for the person I actually want to help? Because that's the most important thing before you press play on anything, is who is this post for? How is it going to make them feel? And what are they going to sort of almost benefit from seeing this right now?
And how important is it for somebody with their marketing and messaging to be able to understand who they're actually talking to first and foremost, instead of just kind of throwing as many different pieces of content out there and or copying, replicating, or seeing what others are doing, and then literally just thinking, right, okay, they're successful, depend upon obviously the realm of what success means, and then just trying to kind of almost do a carbon copy. How important is it for us to be able to reverse engineer and understand target market niche, who I'm actually trying to talk to, and how am I trying to understand their problems better than they can explain it themselves?
It's the calorie deficit of your business. Like, it's, again, I've made every mistake, I've done everything wrong, and it come from a place of like almost within myself, right? Insecurity, panicking, you're seeing other people doing things well, you're thinking, right, it's working for this guy or this girl, maybe that's the thing that I need to talk about. But being able to actually connect and hear and have your finger on the pulse of where your kind of clients are currently at is, again, the most powerful thing you can do. And it's simpler than you think. It's holding space for them, just having a simple conversation, taking people out I tell our coaches all the time, just take some of your people out just for a coffee, just have a chat. If it could be on Zoom, for example, but just go and speak and just listen and see where they're at and see what they're currently struggling with. Because if those are the types of people you enjoy to help, those are their current struggles. And the more that you can talk about that in your social media, the more you're going to attract those types of people. And it seems so simple, and it seems, well, hang on a minute, but in reality, that's it. It's how can you really improve your craft of listening and that presence.
And what would you suggest somebody could now do to be able to actually put themselves out more authentically? Is there a structure or something that you now would recommend and or advise that could be quite a good place to start in terms of even thinking practically from a posting perspective? Because I know this is something that you've supported quite a few of the guys with when they've been able to think, right, okay, how am I going to shift my content, shift my messaging? And actually now, where do I start with actually talking about me? Because I believe that, I'll speak about myself, it's like, I'm inherently boring and we don't really have a lot going on and we don't really do anything different, weird or wonderful, or there isn't anything that's really, really exciting. So then it's almost like, well, actually, where do I start? What do I do? Because I just get up, feed the dog, go for a walk, feed the kids, take them to school, etc.
I think I've probably said this phrase probably about 2,000 times in the last 2 months. Don't normalize your norms. So think what and how and allow are the most important things for you in terms of the way that you're documenting yourself, because we take the things that we do on a daily basis for granted, right? The way that we eat, like our clients don't have the ability to say, right, I've had a terrible, air quoting, a terrible weekend, I'm going to get back on it. And sometimes they actually just don't understand that. And for us as the coach, we can just dial in nutrition, dial in training, the things that, again, that are more comfortable for us, but really looking at our day and why we do what we do. And that feeling of feeling boring, I did exactly the same thing, but it's boring for a reason. It would be boring to someone on the outside, but to us, it brings us peace. It brings us the ability to chill, just to relax, and ultimately go and do what we need to do for obviously ourselves, for our business, our families, etc. So really dialing into why you do what you do and allowing people to buy into that, because that's the connector. Think of it as almost like an episode of Friends, right? When you watch that, there's so many things going on in the background, and you can watch that, you can connect to that, and it gives you something that you want to come back for. If you're clicking on your stories or anyone's stories, look at why you're clicking on it. What is it giving you? Is it connection? Is it humor? Is it love? Is it, do you know what? A bit of freedom. Like, what are you getting from that? And think about that's what your clients are going onto social media for, and our ability to tie that into our everyday actions. And it can be simple things. Think about what your pillars are in terms of your program, sharing across your pillars on a daily basis. For me, for example, family, fitness, fulfillment, and fun, and my ability to demonstrate that on a daily basis. And now that I've said that, you'll probably watch it and go, this is why you do that. And it takes the pressure off you and then allows you to share and prove ultimately what you're doing, and you're technically showing results with even having to force it, and it's a natural thing that you're doing.
Dude, I think two things that really stand out for me is obviously normalizing your norms. And then I think the second thing that I've shared about 100 times off the back of you telling me, we were on a phone call, I was making dinner, which Leanne will be happy to know about, for once. And you basically just said to me, you're like, Joe, your social media needs to be more like an episode of Friends. And I was like, that's a light bulb moment for me. Because then it allowed me to realize and recognize that actually, yeah, absolutely. Like, I always refer, like, if I think about Friends, I think about Joey, like, straight away. And it's like, then as soon as you think about that, then you understand his quirks, his perks, his humor, some of the terminology, his pace, pitch and tone. You understand the things that he loves, he enjoys, the things that he doesn't. And it's like, automatically you feel a sense of connection. And I know this human being not because they've necessarily, like, quote unquote added value in terms of like education, etc., but because actually you've been able to connect with them based upon the way in which they conduct themselves, the way in which they now live, and also, they're kind of like weird and wonderful little things that actually make them, which is absolutely incredible.
It's that ability to give someone like a vision to almost latch on to, because just as a human, it's one of the biggest things we struggle with. It's where do we want to go? Obviously, as a coach, it's like, where do I want my life to be? How do I want it to feel like? But with the clients that we're trying to serve, that we're trying to help, sometimes they don't have that. So giving them that thing it could be our nutrition strategies, it could be the way that we train, it could be the things that we do with our families. It gives someone an idea of, actually, I can live my life like this and still achieve X, Y, and Z, because ultimately that's what we're doing, right? We're trying to allow people mental freedom, and the small actions and the small personality traits and the things that we do have got us to the position we're in, and that's the point, is that we're helping people get to the place that they need to be. So again, it's take that mask off and allow people to see those elements of why you do what you do and why it enhances your life and enhances your clients' lives, because that's what you do.
Amazing. And if we're looking at being able to give people the opportunity to find that kind of like balance and blend between probably like the value piece, obviously the kind of relationship building piece, maybe some kind of ejection handling pieces, social proof, etc. Is there a kind of strategy or structure that you have communicated with the team that has allowed them to actually kind of make sense of, okay, this is actually what I need to put out on the internet? Because sometimes people do get to 8 o'clock at night and they're like, oh, what am I going to post tonight? And how does this now work? And or am I spending too much time actually just in this one area instead of actually now being able to understand like the full spectrum of like differing ways that you can now create content that's going to potentially build relationships and rapport with individuals? Content,
I don't even like calling it content, but the way that we express ourselves is probably the most important thing that you can do for your business, because that is as you would say, and I think it's fantastic, is the shop window into what you do. And if we're not on a simple basis being consistent, being present, allowing people to really see what we do, demonstrating our results, what do you think that they're going to buy into? There's nothing for them to buy into. And the first point of call is getting consistent with it, as we would say to our clients with training, right? Is if you can be consistent and allow people to see that, that's what they're going to buy into. That's the biggest trait. People lack consistency in their life in general. So our ability just to demonstrate, that's point one for you as a confidence booster. Hang on a minute, I am consistent, and that is amazing. So allow yourself to do that. And then obviously in terms of content, start being consistent. And the thing that I suggest for people to do, because you covered it fantastically, is really focus on objections. And when people hear objections, they think about almost having to convince someone, but the objection of what's their biggest hurdle in their life right now. For example, if you work with parents, in their mind it could be time. So we're not here to try and convince them that they haven't got time. We're trying to convince them that we can still work the magic around what they have available. So what are the sort of 1 to 5 biggest objections in your clients' lives, and really think about, one, how do you help them overcome that, because that's your content, but then your ability to demonstrate that and give because it's a confidence thing, right? They think, I don't have the time, how am I going to do this? There's elements of them comparing themselves to previous versions if they trained in previous points in their life, but it's our ability to slowly build up confidence in that person and say, look, this is why we do what we do. So off the back of what you said, I would concentrate on really understanding what their objections and fears are, because the more that you can resonate and someone can feel heard, seen, respected, they're able to go, do you know what, this is the coach for me, because that's always the connector, is that you get them and they get you.
I think the biggest thing it comes back down to, from what I'm hearing, is relationships. Like, people buy people. You do business with people that you like. And it now comes back down to obviously building the relationships. But first and foremost, if you are obviously in a physical place, it can be easier, because ultimately you have these interactions, these connections on the gym floor, and it's like, oh, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? And then it starts to build and develop, obviously, over a period of time. Whereas when you're on the internet, it can be incredibly difficult, because ultimately you're putting something out there, people are then watching it, consuming that, quite often just for entertainment or escapism. And in doing so, it's almost like, well, actually, how can I now get to a point where obviously this person now feels as though that they now know me, which again can feel quite vulnerable for one said individual, because like, even for me, it's like, I don't really like putting myself out there, because it doesn't make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, because you feel as though the people know so much obviously about you. But it's about understanding that, right, okay, that is the cost of wanting to have the connections, that you're now looking for. And if you're not now doing that, I believe that we're then doing a disservice, in my mind anyway. I'm doing somebody a disservice, because I now know that if I can portray and I can show and I can demonstrate and I can connect and I can communicate and I can build rapport, build relationships, and then as a byproduct, this person just gets value for absolute free, and or it helps them in some way, shape or form without them having to ever kind of invest or do anything with us. And that's absolutely incredible. And then if they do get to a point, they're like, actually, I do need some more support, and I then become that lighthouse or that individual that they feel like they can trust, they feel safe around, they feel as though they can actually really connect to, and they can then be themselves and they can allow themselves the opportunity to go on that journey with you. Then in doing so, you have the platform to be able to positively impact somebody in a way which I believe is so special.
You can change someone's life by just putting up a meme. That sounds wild. And if you stop and think about that ability, if you think about some of the best people, the favorite, we all have people that are sort of close to the heart that we've worked with. And you think about those moments where they were stuck. And it was moments I know in my kind of coaching career where I'd had people say to me, Ben, I've tried to message you 3 or 4 times. Ben, you seem so nice. I wasn't sure. And the things that I'd spoken about made someone smile. We don't know what's going on in people's lives, and our ability just to be a human, to resonate, to give them something to feel, because in reality that's what it is. And our ability to demonstrate that is, as you worded it fantastically, is pull someone out of that and give someone some sort of like hope. Sometimes we can go to, for me, because I love this stuff, but we can go too far into this, but this is why people are in the position they are. And we have, in my opinion, the greatest job in the world, because we can change someone's instant presence where they are, but ultimately where their future is and where they can go, just from a drop of just sprinkling our personality. Just be who you are, because there's 1,000,001 people like that in the planet. You might only want 20 clients, you might want 10, I don't know how many you want, but I can 100% tell you there's way more than that of people just like you in the world. And your ability just to show that and realize, hang on a minute, this isn't about me, this is about them. How can I make them feel better through the things that I do? So powerful.
Yeah, people need you exactly as you are today, and I think it's about just being able to own that, and it's about realizing that they don't need you to be further ahead, they don't need you to have more experience, they don't need you to have insert whatever. They now need you through your own uniqueness, which I believe is found at the intersection of who you were and now who you're striving to become. And most importantly, you can't be a life-changing presence to some without now being seen as a joke or embarrassment to others, and that's okay. But the people that now need you, that will gravitate towards you, are the people that you're now kind of, I believe, turning up for. First and foremost, it's for yourself, but then obviously as a byproduct of that, those people are obviously the ones that you can now really find your people as well, because I spent so much time putting myself out there, pretending to be somebody that I wasn't, and therefore obviously attracted a certain type of individual that was still an incredible person, but we didn't necessarily connect on that same level. And therefore as a byproduct, I wasn't really able to truly help them, because I wasn't truly able to be myself, and then I was ultimately pretending to be somebody that I wasn't, and then was losing all this energy because I was having to consistently try to question my every single move and who I thought they needed me to be, instead of actually understanding, well, actually, no, this is me. If I do that, I'm going to attract an individual who has similar values, traits, beliefs, etc. And that will actually allow us to be able to build a greater relationship, and also as a byproduct, build a container, culture, community of individuals who are very, very similar. And when you then have that, and you have that shared belonging, and you have those people around you that may have different goals, may have different aspirations, may have different things that they're working towards, but you all have very similar traits and or characteristics, and a similar set of values, what that does for you in terms of the belonging that you feel and the results that you can then yield are truly life-changing.
It's wild. If you want a business that you enjoy, that you're connected to, be yourself and let people see that, because that's enough. I know for a fact that you, as the coach listening to this podcast, is that you care about people. You care about your career, you care about your family, you're a good person. You're putting effort into what you're doing. You're trying to improve your craft on a daily basis. You might feel a little bit lost right now, because I was that person, right? Before I signed up to this, and before I said to Joe, do you know what, I need to be part of this. But you are enough as you are right now to help people, right? You've done the work. Is that the aim, to be the best we can? Yes, 100% it is. But it's a process, and you can, as you said, you can help people right now, and don't slow that down because of, hang on a minute, do I do this? Because that's the biggest thing that I tell myself if I could go back, is be who you are and talk about that and allow someone to see, like really see you. Because the moment you can stop and go, do you know what? Yes, I'm scared. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not sure. But that moment that it clicks for you and you start really demonstrating who you are is the moment you, for you as the coach, you get mental freedom and you go, hang on a minute. Yes, this is going to be sticky, but I'm processing it. But ultimately the reason that we are doing this is to help people. And that moment that person go, yes, it's win-win for everybody. So give yourself that opportunity to give yourself that pat on the back.
Yeah, I think it's bridging the gap with trust, isn't it? Because again, so many people are scared to obviously reach out because again, the experiences, the challenges that they've had previously, potentially the amount of times that they've maybe, in their mind failed. And then in doing so, actually people are then watching and following and seeing what you're currently doing. And they're like, okay, building that rapport, building that relationship. I like it. It's like brick by brick by brick. It's almost like you're at one side of the island, they're at the other side of the island. It's like you're just trying to build a bridge. You're trying to build a bridge brick by brick, step by step to now be able to get that bridge so that they can actually now start to go, okay, this is now the journey that I can see myself going on, and this is the person that I believe that's going to be the guide. So I can now be, and I'm now going to be the hero of that, just as in them, they're going to be the hero of their own journey. And I think for us, it's also about realizing, yes, we've got to be able to be front facing, but then it's also actually the conversations and the connections that you then create as a byproduct and the relationships and the rapport that you build, not trying to get somebody onto a call and or trying to sell something to somebody as quickly as possible, but playing a more infinite, longer term game where you're actually building genuine relationships. Because if it's like on the gym floor, I remember being on the gym floor for 4 years and I spent all of my time just helping people, asking questions, being curious, getting to know them. And then all of a sudden it's like when you then say, oh, hey, I now do coaching. I was inundated and had more inquiries than anybody else and anything else because of the relationships you've now built. And it's the same. It's like that has to happen on the internet, whereby you're now building these relationships, building this rapport and building this trust and building these connections over a longer term play. But I believe that one big challenge that we have is like we're playing a finite game, we're playing such a short term, and it's like, right, okay, well actually, do you know what, how quickly can I get this person onto a call, or how quickly can I get them into my program? And just instead of thinking, right, actually, well, I believe the strongest relationships are the ones that happen over, again, a longer term play. And then in doing so, actually, what you can do with that individual, and actually, I believe then from a client fulfillment, a customer journey perspective, and a fulfillment perspective for you as a coach, I believe that is so much greater because I believe you've been able to do it the right way.
100%. And it sounds so obvious is the amount of people that I've spoken to asking us, how do we speak to people on the internet? And I understand it's scary, right? In our minds, we're building this process up, but ask them how they are. Ask them honestly how they are, give them some space, allow them to talk, and don't force it, because it's if you're forcing anything, even if you were in person, and we joke about this a lot, but you're not going to go up to someone in a bar and just ask them straight for their number. You're going to, how you doing? Do you want a drink? And it's the same process online, right? Just because we're sort of protected by a screen doesn't mean that there's a person at the other end of it. And start and think, would I say this to someone in public? Like, is it in terms of, this could be like the things you're posting, the things you're putting in stories. Would you be able to sit next to someone and actually look them in the eye and say that to them? Sometimes you can, right? And that's cool, do that. But if you can't, and you think, hang on a minute, I'm following this kind of script, or I'm trying to say these things in this kind of order. Like if that's not who you are and the way that you speak, the way that you articulate yourself, there's gonna be that instant disconnect, which is gonna kill a bit of trust and confidence in yourself. So your ability to say, do you know what? I wouldn't actually say that to someone. I'd probably ask them, how's your day been going? How's the family? And then you build confidence in the process, which ultimately, as you said beautifully, is you're building that relationship with someone, because they go, hang on a minute, this person that I see that's up on this pedestal that has achieved all this stuff that I want to be is actually a normal person who actually connects on the same things. So powerful to do so.
Yeah, and that comes back down to get the person thriving. It's like it's your ability to be able to develop your skill of communication, your skill of empathy, and being able to listen and or ask the right questions at the appropriate times and based upon what you're currently hearing and seeing through active listening. And in order for you to be able to do that, that requires you to have to get better in terms of your skill set, which I believe now is probably one of, if not the most integral and most important component of anyone building their business. It's not necessarily like all of their kind of the business like mechanisms per se. It's actually about, right, okay, the person who's flying the plane and actually their ability to be able to communicate, convey, and connect is going to be the most powerful, the most potent thing, because I believe that the pendulum's shifting more towards the customer has the prospective client has a greater degree of power, because they're now looking for safety and certainty, and that's what they now need to see in an individual, which comes back down to building relationships over a longer term play, and actually being able to, in order for you to have what you really want, you first must become who you really are. So being able to actually allow yourself the opportunity to step into that is going to be so incredible, and one of the most important and most powerful and integral things that you can now do for success and longevity within business, but also within yourself.
100%. And it's what you said earlier has really resonated with me in terms of us playing this sort of like speed game, finite. How can we do this as quickly as possible? But it's to remember that we are dealing with people, and I mentioned this in the training, is like boom or bust. People are still going to be stuck, right? Whatever the sort of the financial market is saying, people are still going to have those feelings, and our ability to still lead from this place of how can I make this person feel better? How can I give this person that confidence? How can I allow this person to see into my world? JP Classic, how can we see them, like to let them see into the shop window, and really just connect and just be a human with someone and just allow someone some space just to have a chat? Because when you're doing that sort of stuff, it's going to take away the majority of lack of confidence in yourself. It's going to build up confidence in the other person, which is ultimately going to allow you to help that person, which is a win-win situation. So the skills of just literally talking to people are so important, and it's something that I'd highly recommend to coaches in general. It's just almost practice talking to people, like having a chat. I'm not suggesting in terms of having a focus with the chat, but just having an open chat and just being able to listen and just say, hang on a minute, how are you feeling today? Because again, for a coach, it is quite a lonely world, right? If you're working online, you can feel, hang on a minute, who have I got in my world? Who is there for me? But ultimately, there's probably people in your world that you do know, that you do resonate with. Like, connect with those people, go out, have a coffee, whatever it might be, and just have a chat. Almost in your mind, think, right, how can I get this? This is for me, right? Giving me an opportunity just to decompress, to just be with like-minded people. But also, how can I actually think, right, how would I almost help this person through the thing they're going through? It's so important that we spend our time in the kind of nuts and bolts of really honing who we are on our craft, to allow to, again, to be the best version of ourselves.
Dude, I love that. We've got 5 minutes into a checkout, so I've got a final question for you. It's probably the biggest and most important question to date. Are Arsenal going to win the league?
No. No, I'm a heartbroken man. It's the hope that kills you every time.
Good. Ben, thank you so much. Team, I hope you were able to enjoy that podcast. If you have been able to extract and or take any value, then I would love for you to drop Ben a message and let him know your biggest takeaway point. Until next time, I look forward to catching up with you soon.